Rated mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's rock.
Broadcasting from the Big Peach of Atlanta, Georgia. A show unfiltered, unscripted, raw. The Patriot Angle Podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Patriot Angle Podcast, guys. This is a very special edition here to the show of shows, guys. Tonight we are going to be doing a video simulated audio podcast. For those who do not understand what that is, basically, it will be an audio podcast, ladies and gentlemen, with special video plugins here. Streaming live on Twitch and also streaming live on our Facebook page, the Patriot Angle Podcast. We are welcoming into the Rumble platform, but in possibly another week to 2 weeks, we will be on Rumble. As you may or may not know, we were officially banned from YouTube. We are not allowed to share any content on YouTube. We're not allowed to share anything. Uploads, shorts, nothing. Zada, Zinch. So the Patriot Angle Podcast, unfortunately, is no more on YouTube. But we are still on Twitch and going over to Rumble in another week to 2 weeks, as we are basically prepping for our new video packaging for Rumble for the live feeds. As you can see, you're getting some sneak peeks into the new video packaging that's basically being introduced to you, the listeners out there of the Patriot Angle Podcast, as well as the Unfiltered Patriot Nation. So welcome, guys. Welcome. Tonight, we have the utmost honor and privilege to welcome back Sauce back to the show. How you doing, pal? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing phenomenal. You heard the sad news that we're no more on YouTube. They officially, kind of kicked us to the curb, so to speak, sir. So we have to find other avenues to get our stream out there, our content out there, and I think we're going to do okay. I think we're really, I think we're not going to allow YouTube, to keep us down. You know what I mean?
No, I absolutely agree. And a matter of fact, welcome to the club. I should say the band club.
Yeah.
Because YouTube actually removed me because I was actually born in Russia. So I was actually one of the first ones to go permanently.
Yeah.
But
it's a little unfortunate, isn't it, Sauce?
Isn't it? See, and the whole thing is that isn't it sick how the left believes in like freedom of speech and stuff, and allowing everyone to express their thoughts and views, but at the same time you bring another kind of a different perspective of mind, then they just censor that individual, so you only get one-sided. It's not Russia, after all, it's America.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, it's the sick demented society we live in, Sauce. Unfortunately, this is what we have to kind of put up with until times get better. You know what I mean?
Well, did you hear what Elon Musk did this past week or today?
With the Twitter story, right?
Yeah, offered $53 billion to buy out the whole company instead because he actually got removed from the board of directors, and so now he's just offering to buy the whole company within itself and make it a private company.
It's pretty impressive. Do you think that if he does buy it, and I mean, do you think possibly there will be new, uh, how should I say it, better additions to the platform? Do you think they'll eliminate the censorship?
You know, I think with if Elon Musk were to buy Twitter and stuff, I think I would be a fan of it because there would be nothing wrong with it because I think if he were to he believes in free speech. You know, he understands that, this country was founded upon the Constitution and was founded upon the freedom of speech because he actually is from South Africa. He was born in South Africa, came to America for an opportunity to build his company, and look what he did. So he doesn't want to take the freedoms away that he has earned. And I think that's, you know, it seems like the people that are fighting for freedom, I'm noticing that are more out there that have money and stuff. For instance, Elon and other so-called billionaires that live in America. Why? The funny part is that they escaped their own countries that don't have those kind of freedoms that came to America, but now are fighting for us, which is really sad. It should be the other way around. No offense to immigrants that do come to America.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Um, we're talking about Elon Musk, that he had basically made that speech at the TED, right? If that's what they call it, right? TED.
TED
He
Talk.
made, yeah, TED Talk, right? Oh, is that a podcast or is that a talk show?
So the TED Talk is considered like a high tech company.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
it features all different kinds of new gadgets that are coming out, and features like high end things that your average day American can't produce or can't buy. But it's pretty much for so-called the elites and see the newest high tech, and then it kind of goes down and breaks down with what kind of instruments they had to do, how long it took to get the projects going, and what kind of materials it did, and how this material, for instance, the Neuralink that he was discussing, which I'm actually what okay. So before we continue on, what do you think about Neuralink that he's discussing about?
Um, I didn't, to be honest with you, Sauce, I didn't read too much into that article and that story. I'm not too much. I'm not aware of that. To be honest with you, I'm just going to be straightforward. I didn't read too much into it, so I can't really give you an insight on that.
I think so personally. Here's what I think about Neuralink. I don't know if you can question me out, but I've been following Elon Musk pretty heavily, and so one thing that I understand that I'm a huge support and a big advocate for is that he wants to help people that are paralyzed and that have suffered strokes and that have dealt with this kind of knowing that people can't get up, and so what the Neuralink does is that so when it attaches to the brain, actually wires go inside your brain, and then it's like a tiny square thing out of your skull, so on the
Right.
bone, and so they install it back there, and so but then they entrap the wires of where there's damage in the brain, and so that's the cool thing that I found out about with the Neuralink and how it's going to help people that have suffered strokes. It's going to help people that have FND, which is functional neurological disorder. So it's going to help those kind of people. And so I'm a huge advocate for it, but at the same time, here's the caveat to it. Once it's in, it can't be taken out. That's the big caveat, and that's what and I could see lawsuits coming out against Elon Musk if this were to go on the market.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. That I mean, I'm sure they would be trying to attack him on anything possible if it does make its way to the general public, like you said, makes its way to the market, right? I'm sure there'd be a lot of lawsuits, both on the federal and the civil scale, right? So that's. But do you think that's a risk that he might have to take?
Well, I think so. I don't see a problem because at this point he doesn't have to worry about retirement. At this point he is fighting for America and also fighting to make sure the earth is protected, and through like environmental cost and through different kind of projects that he's pushing for. So I think he's doing a great job in that sense where he's looking out for the best interests of the people.
Yeah.
And I think because if he was like really not self-centered, I shouldn't say, but if he really was about money, then he would have put SpaceX on the market already, on the stock market as a stock ticker. But instead, he's worrying about, hey, I want to give back the freedom back to the people. And so that's how I'm going to invest it and give the rights back and give the freedom back to the American people. And so I'm going to buy a huge chunk of Twitter.
Right. But what do you think the delay is that you mentioned SpaceX? He is the
founder of it.
Lead, yeah, well, he's the founder of it, but he's also the lead guy on it. I mean, what do you think the delay in that is? Do you think it's more of of politics being involved, or like you said, like why wait? Just get it over and done with, right?
Well, I think so. Do you mean by putting the SpaceX on the market? Is that for people so people can buy shares of it, like they're doing with Tesla?
Oh yeah, that's what.
Yep. So
here's
okay. So here's the thing that I think that okay. So with that stance, I think what he's trying to figure out is that I think he found out that there's a much bigger dilemma that's going on, and that he's starting to prioritize that our freedoms are actually coming under attack, and that people need to be held accountable, and that he is starting to now fight back for the people. And that's why he's kind of pushing back. He's not pushing back, but he's kind of stalling on SpaceX on putting it on the stock market because he's giving back the power back to the people.
Right.
And so you see that, and you kind of see the difference between him and Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is more worried about getting his grubby paws in all these environmental groups and in all these like advocating going to the White House and advocating for unions. For instance, Amazon in New York City officially passed to be a union. And so
I read about that.
And that's a major problem. And here's the difference. Anyone that allows a union into their company, they are opened up a Pandora's box. And what I found to be interesting is that if you look at Biden and if you look at Kamala Harris, they never ever tour any Tesla factories. Anyway, they had the most recent open of the Tesla factory in Austin, Texas. I was at the Gigafactory. That was huge. And the reason why they don't tour it, and according to Elon Musk, is because they're not unionized. And Elon is against unions, which is, I give him props.
If I may cut in, I could speak on a large amount of the issue with unions. I happen to be originally from the tri-state area in New York, New Jersey, originally. Okay. And in my early 20s, I had my share experience in working for several unions on a large and a small scale. And I can tell you, and I'll admit, some sauce are not bad. Some are very good. They have that traditional, Hoffa, Jimmy Hoffa type of old school of the union, where they back you and they protect you against, corporations, large and small. That is a good union to work for. Okay. Which I've had my share experience working for some, but I will agree with you. Some have become extremely corrupted over the years. So
the teachers union. Look at the teachers union.
Yeah, the teachers union. Yeah.
And look at the teachers union, and then you also have the vehicle company unions, like vehicle unions. So for example, Chevy and Ford, the top two besides Tesla that are unionized. And the whole thing is that, and the sad thing is that The problem with the teachers union and the problem is with even the vehicle unions and stuff is that they're really not looking out for the best interests of the people. All they're looking
No.
out for is they're looking out for the votes, and that's why they keep on hitting the unions. And so here's the whole thing. If I was Ford, I would question the company. I'm like, okay, if I worked for Ford, first of all, my first question is, am I going to be released, or why are more factories going overseas than just staying in America? Why aren't we building more factories like what Tesla's doing?
Right.
How come the corporate headquarters is not in America anymore? That's only a sub headquarters, and instead they're going overseas. And because the reason why they're going overseas is because you have the lower corporate tax compared to other. So America has the highest corporate tax right now. We're leading number one, and that's what's causing more and more companies to leave America and put their headquarters outside the country because they don't want to pay the 39% interest rate on corporate tax. I hate to say it, I would do the same thing.
Well, I was just about to say, Stas, I mean, do you blame them? I mean, would you want to pay that large interest in tax? But we're talking about unions. We're talking about Elon Musk, Musk, excuse me. Let's look at unions right now, okay? And I could tell you what's failing unions. Let's go back to the original roots of unions, right? Jimmy Hoffa had the same problem in the 70s and early 80s, right? A lot of it had to do with political agenda, right? He was basically trying to get his unions almost on a government scale, right? He was battling the Kennedys, right?
Yep.
And there was a lot of scandal there. We can get into that if you want, and it has a lot of relevance to what's going on now with modern unions. There was a lot of corruption in the 70s and early 80s, when Hoffa was running the Teamsters. And that has a lot of similarity to the unions today with the teachers unions and all these, big time, big wig companies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so we look at the one minor factor, or we see the unions, for example, the teachers unions.
Right.
I kind of want to pinpoint on the teachers union to really talk about how they're really, when you talk about the next generation of our kids, and you talk about, for instance, like the opening up of the schools and how the schools needed to be opened up, but the problem is that the teachers union, they pretty much what happened is that they went to the county health directors and they went to the county board and across America and even across other, even in your local city, they did to kind of lay out the guidelines. For instance, get this, I was with Ron Johnson in Madison, Wisconsin about a couple of weeks ago, and we discussed about the education system, of course. And so what happened was, and I learned this whole thing, by the way, and I'll send you photos and I'll send you more information about what's really going on. But he kind of touched on what the teacher unions did and what they were kind of forced to do. So, for instance, the whole mask wearing and why it's so prevalent in our schools and why it's also prevalent in the public is because when COVID first started to outbreak, what happened is that the school board went to the teachers and asked, what would you like to see? So then the teachers union then collaborated for each school districts and said, hey, this is what we like to see. And they brought the proposal to the school board. So then, therefore, the school board went to the county they went to the county health director and said, hey, these are the criteria that we want as a public school regarding mask wearing and regarding the vaccination status per se, and regarding the certain criteria that happen for students, the distancing, how many people can be in a classroom, and even on the school bus. And so then the sad part is that the county health directors took those ideas and they made a mandate, and they came out they just signed it, said, well, this is what we instructed, and called it science. But that's not science. That's just called teachers unions getting a little bit more power than they should be getting. So I was blown away when I heard about that, and how Ron Johnson, you could see his reaction. He was sickened by that and stating
Sauce, they did the same shit in the 70s and 80s during Hoffa. You know, I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, I agree what you're saying, but this is really nothing new. You know, it's history repeating itself.
True, and that's scary, isn't it?
Oh, it's extremely scary. You know, I'll quote, you know, my grandparents. They said this, you know, all the time. You know, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Absolutely. And not only that, but if you're gonna, we look at what's happening and look what critical race theory is. If anyone
CRT,
does,
yeah,
if anyone is doing their homework and if anyone has paid attention in class, look what Nazi Germany did. You know, look what they did with the education system, and look what they did for the brainwashing of the young kids, and even in the college.
Right now,
they're absolutely.
Yeah.
So the fact that, so the concerning part and what should be alarming is that we are repeating the same exact steps as what Nazi Germany did that led into World War III. And I hate to say it, but we keep on going down this wrong route, and we're going to be in a world of hurt. And it's going to be our next generation that's going to pay for.
I think we're already there.
We are.
We're beyond the early signs and early forms of socialism. We are now getting
communism.
The early, yes, I was about to say that, the early stages of communism. Look at countries of China. Look at countries of Venezuela, Cuba, certain areas of Russia. Okay, all showing that same scenario. America is going down the same paths as all of those countries. And a lot of us question ourselves saying, is it too late? Can we save America? Well, we can, but let us take a gather and understanding of how we can save America by looking at examples of these other countries, looking at what their fails and flaws are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, I hate to say it. Well, no, you know what seems to be interesting is that, you know, there comes to a point where it's not really fixable anymore. You know, for instance, we had the elections, but clearly that's already been compromised, and so now our options are coming down, slimming pretty slim. You know, we pretty much have two options. You know,
right.
Either we really push out to get out the vote for, you know, patriot candidates, or number two, we just demonstrate peaceful protests and show up at the school board meetings and show up at county board meetings and even show up all over it, and as well as show up at your local capital like I've been doing. You know, I've been asking questions and I've been getting involved. That's called being involved, because the last thing I want to see is January 6th 2.0 all over again. But I definitely can tell you this time around, if it were to happen again, it's not going to be quite as staged. It's going to be actually.
And you mentioned that, you know, you do go to these you know, these protests, these you know, certain special events of hearings and all this. You know, I heard you know, your story, you know, when you went up to Capitol this past January, and
I did.
What that network done to you is a disgrace. It really is, making you into into some type of Marxist criminal of a domestic terrorist. That's terrible, Sauce. Absolutely.
And I just want to tell you for your viewers. Okay, so I know there's now the sad part is that it's been going all over. So it's Gateway Pundit pick up, and now it's going all over Rumble, and it's going all over. But here's the thing I want to get your viewers across, because if you were to put that article on your website, I want to kind of correct it. First of all, if you look at the videos, so I went there and I knew once they started breaking the windows, I started backing away soon. And I knocked that girl off the podium, or off the platform where the window is. And once she started kicking it, I knocked her down, because I said, no, we're not going to act like this. And so then a guy came up running with a stick, and then I yanked his arm down once he took a couple blasts, because I didn't know what he was going to do with that stick. And so then the sad part is that according to the footage and stuff, and according to what they stated, they said they stated that I had a play in it. I'm like, I don't think so. I would there would anyway. I disagree on some stances, but I understand though from a person that's lived under a communist country, if you act like that, you're asking to get in trouble. You're not going to get your point across if you do government damage. You're not going to get your point across if you cause harm onto a building or try to get into a building that's not legal way.
Sash,
And
you
so,
understand what they were doing, right? They're basically trying to create a headline out of you. You know, they're
and they
trying
did.
to sell that story, and you said they did, right? And
They
they
did.
made a successful attempt in doing it because they see a young man such as yourself, and these people, Sas, they know what they're doing. Okay, they go to schools, special, learning programs. They know how to make these talking points into false talking points. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you know what's scary about it is that Gateway Pundit is supposedly conservative. Did you know that?
Supposedly,
Yeah, so I put that quote supposedly because
right?
they're the top out of the world. They're one of the top 150 news media outlets. And so, and you know how I found out about the article? You're going to get a kick out of this. So good old CNN sent me an email and stated, "Hey, what can we ask some questions?" And I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
boy, what's this?" And they're like, "Well, we saw you a picture in the article. There was an article that came out against you." And I said, "Well, first of all," I'm like, "Okay, well, number one, okay, there was no way that you know who I am. And how did you get my number? That's number one. Number two, I want the proof of where you got the article because you never know. I might have been in the background or I might have been just like, one of those non-important characters. And if you look at the
Right.
footage, they pinpoint me, which is you can clearly see they did target me. And and then number three, they might describe and they might have like just one photo or two photos. But that's number three. But when they sent me the article, and I sent it to you right away once I'm like, I can't believe this just happened. And it was, I was thinking about you. I'm like, I wonder if Michael would enjoy this because he's probably thinking, well, it's probably you're in the background or it's not really important of the article. What was your thought?
Well, myself, I could tell you this. Myself and, a couple of people here at the podcast, producer Eric and a few others that work here on the show, we were actually looking at those images, Sash. And some of the images, even with we seen the little circle there. And, we're looking at it and we're like, okay, they're trying to say something here that's really not happening whatsoever. I'm reading the article in that what was it? You said it was Gateway Pundit?
Yeah, Gateway Pundit.
Yeah, we're reading that article there, and we're just reading every little thing there. And I'm like, okay, they're saying that he's doing this, and then they're changing the scenario around, and you have that, you almost have that blank stare on your face, just about, you know what I mean? Like, okay, this is something entirely different from what they're pinpointing it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's okay. So if I may ask, what did you? Okay, so when I sent you the article, I said, "Hey, you might want to take a look at this." Did you think I was just like in the background, or did you think I was like not that important of a character? They're talking about another aspect of a character.
Well, I mean, Sash, there was like thousands upon thousands of people there in the crowd. So, I mean, I could say you were just an ordinary person, right? I mean, that's my personal opinion on it.
And so the bigger question then is, I mean, out of all the thousands of people that were actually potentially, I think there were about 3 million or so, but there were about hundreds and thousands of people that actually showed up at the Capitol. But the bigger question I have is, out of all those thousands of people that were in that, when they spanned out, why couldn't they focus on other people? For instance, why couldn't they focus on that FBI operative that, once tear gas started coming out, they had this blonde woman, and I took a photo of it, and I'll be happy to send it to you. And
Sure.
why couldn't they focus on her? Instead of once for instance, I stayed there for a little bit. I would say about about an hour or so in that position, and I was trying to get people away from breaking the windows, and I was trying to get people like away from doing all the bad stuff. But what I found out to be interesting is that once the FBI operative got in there, and she had blonde hair, she was dressed up, and she was on her phone the whole entire time. Well, first of all, how can you make any phone calls? And she was making phone calls. My question to ask Gateway Pundit is, if I, for example, were to like be on my phone, well, they shut off our cell service right at 9:30 a.m. and that's when the Capitol was breached. Okay, that's number one.
You didn't have any cell service whatsoever then when you were up there, correct?
No, not at all. The thing is, I can't even post anything on Facebook. I can't even talk or call anyone. And they shut the Wi-Fi off, and it was all at 9:30. And so at 9:30, if you look at some other footages, at 9:30, that's when the Capitol was actually breached. And President Trump was supposed to come out at 9 o'clock, but he came out at noon specifically to state, hey, something bad happened, and there is something up. And so he deliberately came out late because he knew that there was a major problem going on.
Yeah.
And so the fact that, I should have been on my cell phone, I should have been making phone calls, or, I should have been like looking at the doors and stuff is completely wrong. First of all, I love to talk, I love to meet people, and so the fact that I was supposedly talking to people, I was supposedly making sign language, and I was like focusing, like looking away from the crowd and stuff. Well, my whole thing is that if you're in that kind of a crowd, there's going to be cameras. There's going to be cameras pointed at the doors.
A large protest in that. I'm sure there's going to be cameras. There's cameras all over the damn place. Yeah, without a doubt.
And then what the funny part is? There was a couple media people standing right next to me. So how come they didn't? That's why I found out to be interesting. The only reason why I found out there were media people is because they had special backpacks and they had like video cameras, like TV cameras. So that's the only way I found out about it. Well, why couldn't they focus on those people and say, well, what were they really doing there? Or how come they weren't? And so you would think the TV cameras would position their cameras and ask me, hey, what are you doing at this rally? What do you see, the outcome and all that? But they didn't. And so,
that's the negative. That's the negative bias of a media sauce.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Guys, what you are hearing on the podcast right now is Soslin, which happened to be up in the Capitol during the January 6th event. And he is giving you his inside story of it all. More on this, guys. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after these words. Don't go anywhere.
Fake news, big tech, and blue state liberals stole the election from President Trump. But here in Alabama, we're making sure that never happens. We have not and will not send absentee ballots to everyone and their brother. We banned corrupt curbside voting, and our results will always be audited. I'm Kay Ivey. The left is probably offended. So be it. As long as I'm governor, we're going to protect your vote.
Hulu has live TV? Hulu has live sports?
They do.
Hulu has live news?
That is correct. And Hulu also has
Live talent show.
It also has over 75 live channels.
Woo!
Flip like cable, stream like Hulu. Time to have Hulu plus live TV.
Alrighty, guys, back to the show. We have Sauce here joining us here once again on the show, talking about the January 6th event, which he happened to be up in that area, and more on that story. So basically, Sauce, what you're saying is, these crazy, delusional of a media company, Gateway Pundit, turned the entire story completely around, pretty much, right?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I apparently it's lagging on my end, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So Yeah, so so you think, first of all, I don't know if you ever trusted Gateway Pundit, but I mean, I did trust him a little bit, but after what they came out and stuff, and after they came out and stated, hey, who this is, and that kind of article towards me, I mean, I was just blown away. And here's another question I have for you is, how did the news medias tend to reach out, and how did they know to contact my number? So the bigger question I have is that there's got to be somebody inside there's got to be somebody that doesn't like me, number one, that gave out my name and also gave out my phone number and my email. That's my two basic questions. I don't know who that is, and I'm probably not going to find out about.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because, as a society today, Sas, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, we do live in an S&M type of, environment, which is, surveillance and monitoring. They're constantly surveilling and monitoring our cell phones, our daily activity on social media. Every place you go to, the government is watching, sadly.
Yeah. Well, and here's the whole thing. So here's the whole thing is that I find out to be interesting is that I don't know if Gateway Pundit did this as a slandering thing, or they probably wanted to spark some I don't know what do you think their goal was? What was their end goal at the end of the day? What do you think? What do you think about that stance? What do you think they're
here's my view on it, okay? Like I said before, and I'll mention this again, they see a young, college student such as yourself, maybe possibly a little vulnerable, and I'm not judging your character, but in their eyes, this is what I see. I see in their eyes that they see a young college kid, vulnerable, probably weak-minded, easy to attack, and you were their target, sadly, and they took advantage of that, Sauce. And that's very unfortunate, that you basically were a victim in all of that.
Yeah.
I'm truly sorry. My heart goes out to you that I'm truly sorry that you had to experience all of that.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Well, it is, and it shows you and it shows you the lack of really transparency of reporting. When you look at the big picture of schemes. If anyone thinks that there is transparent reporting in this day and age, there's now I'm not only going to attack CNN, but I'm also going to attack Fox News as well. It's both sides that are at fault.
You talk about Fox and CNN. We got some video clips here. We'll plug it to the show that's relevant to that. Have you seen, not to change the story a little bit, but have you seen, speaking of what you're saying, have you seen what they're actually they're going back against Trump, in relevance to what you're saying about the January 6th event, that I think Trump came out the other day on his social network, Truth Social, which is doing phenomenal, I hear, with the following, since it's been launched for like the last month and a half, 2 months now.
What's your number, by the way?
What's that?
I'm 326,547. That's my line number.
What are you referring to?
Oh, so like on Truth Social, if you haven't.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't made the jump onto Truth Social yet, but we're hoping to join them as soon as possible. But yeah, I mean that's great. That's a huge following, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, just let alone that many people, that's fantastic, because that shows you that people, and you look at you look at Frank's speech, for instance, and you look at your podcast, and you look at Rumble, and you look at all these other circumstances, all these new media things showing up, and how so many people are actually, like, for instance, I'm doing my own podcast called Remember God Loves You and I'll Meet You at the Finish Line. I add a little bit tidbit of God and faith into it, but I also add a little bit of political aspect of it from a Christian standpoint. And I feel like so many people are tired of watching the regular news, and like watching MSNBC or the daily MSN news, and they want the truth. And so what they're relying on is the podcasting that you and I are on right now, and my podcast, and either Frank's speech and Rumble and all that, because they want the truth, because they're sick and tired of the lies.
Here's the thing, Sas, you know, and you make a good point, sir. You know, they've been relying on this old school, what I call it, a terrestrial view of the news for years. Okay. And it was working for a while, but as we're getting into an advanced type of society, right, with podcasting, with online streaming, content creators, you know, such and such, they're more, you know, people are becoming more relied on that type of information from a podcaster or a content creator, because, like you said, like you mentioned, they're hearing more of a truth. They're hearing more truth and less negative vibes coming out. You know what I mean? You see more negative vibes coming out of CNN and Fox News even now, MSNBC, CBS. You see more negative vibes, more bias, more hateful and extreme marks and everything from those networks. But, you know, don't get me wrong, you're going to see some of it in podcasting, but, you know, for the majority of it, it's a whole different platform.
Well, and not only that, but like even within podcasting, you have a whole different variety. You know, you have more of a, for instance, you know, if I want to go on Rumble and I want to say something against, like, something that favors Joe Biden, so you put in I like Joe Biden, and sure enough, it has a whole bunch of podcasts stating, hey, this is a Joe Biden podcast, we like you. Or you want like Patriot Review or like Unfiltered podcasts or Patriot Nation or something like that, and then you find like a different perspective. So it's more of a variety for people to choose. Now sometimes you can choose that, sometimes you don't, but you're given that willingness of getting a different perspective of the worldview. Because my whole thing is that here's the thing that I'm looking at. You know, we have CNN and we have NBC, or NBC, and you have the nightly news and even Fox News. So about all that, you have about 10 minutes worth of actual news, because look at CNN. They just regurgitate all the news constantly, you know, and they bring up old news and bring it up as, breaking news, you know, but they don't look at, and it's all opinion based, you know, it's all commentary, you know, and that's why so many people are leaving.
It's all scripted.
Absolutely.
There's more scripted material on those huge networks, and it's always been like that. You know,
absolutely.
That person, that anchor talking, that Don Lemon, that Sean Hannity, that
Tucker Carlson,
whatever, right? Just to name a few for examples. Some of them are great, some of them are, I would kind of like turn the channel off, but that's not their true character. Sean Hannity, you think even the great Sean Hannity, the great Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, do you think when they're talking that's coming out of their heart? That's their true words? No, it's coming off of a teleprompter or the script of the piece of paper right next to them. You know what I mean?
And you know what? Another thing that I find out to be interesting is, you know, you find Sean Hannity every single episode. He's like, breaking news. You know, this is coming in. And I'm like, okay, get to the point already. You know, he's like, well, we're going to get to the breaking news. And the whole thing is that, you know, at that point, if people watch Fox News, I don't know how people can watch Fox News. You know, I understand like, I watch Greg Gutfeld at 11 o'clock or at 10 p.m. But other than that, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how people can watch. Now, the reason why I watch Greg Gutfeld is because he has comedy. You know, it's actually funny.
He puts some comedy into it. Yeah, he enhances the audience and Cat Tempf like that. Yeah.
But like you add Tucker Carlson and you add Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham. Well, the whole thing is that after watching that, I feel worse off than I did before. You know, and that's the whole thing. And people are getting sick and tired of feeling like, man, we're already in a bad environment.
Yeah,
you know, we're already bad at state. You know,
speaking of Hannity, did you see what Hannity just came out with Fox News? there's a video clip we'll plug in here momentarily. Hannity, okay, is literally pretty much, I don't know, he's not in favor of Trump. With certain viewpoints that just came out recently, that even Laura Ingraham slammed Hannity. This was like the other day. Did you see that, son?
I did, and the reason why Hannity's kind of slamming that is because it's all viewership.
Yeah,
and they're trying to do is that they're trying to get the numbers from CNN and other like Rachel Maddow into.
I mean, because everybody's well aware of CNN Plus is not doing that great.
Oh, that's a joke.
Oh, the viewership is. I mean, it's terrible. But check out this video here of literally Hannity. This is the tip of the iceberg, folks. Check this out.
It was Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, they're not only Joe Biden's policies are not only aiding and abetting the law breaking and enforcing the law, but they're also involved in human trafficking because they're literally transporting illegal immigrants into every state around the country and then just leaving them there. And then it becomes the responsibility of the state to provide food, water, shelter, medical treatment, health care, and education. And most states can't afford it, Senator.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I think that what's happening here, but that's the tip of the iceberg, by the way. The stuff that you're seeing now is the tip of the iceberg. As an example, in Florida, there's this Pelosi puppet, this Congresswoman Val Demings, that Chuck Schumer handpicked to run against me, and she's in favor of completely open borders, of allowing illegal immigrants to vote, of not deporting people even if they're gang members. She's raised $30-something million for her campaign as a result of these stances. This is, I think the Speaker Gingrich was on just a moment ago, and he talked about this is how about values, this is about principles, and they're wacky. These are radical ideas, and what you're seeing, the images you're seeing, are just the tip of the iceberg of the kind of agenda these people want to follow. No country in the world would allow the lawlessness that we have with our immigration system. None.
We just talked with Newt Gingrich about the border disaster, the Afghanistan withdrawal disaster, the lack of urgency in Ukraine, the economy, 40-year high inflation, wholesale prices, a new record, 40-year record of inflation, energy now double what it was under Donald Trump when Joe Biden inherited energy independence. Crime out of control by defund, dismantle the police, and Joe Biden even ran out of COVID tests around Christmas, going into the third year of a pandemic. I don't know how you can do any worse than that.
You really can, and I think if you look at every major issue in front of this country, everything is worse than it was when Joe Biden took over. Everything is worse than it was. And frankly, that's why I need people's help. I'm asking them to go to marcorubio.com because I'm being outraged because this movement from the left, they know they can't win the election on these issues. What they're trying to do is raise tens of millions of dollars to destroy people, lie to them. Obviously, they'll have a lot of help from the mainstream media. So I need people's help to fight back against this because they don't want to hear that story. They don't want people hearing the reality that on every issue, immigration, the economy, our national security, our standing in the world, we are substantially worse off today than we were in January of last year when Joe Biden took over on everything.
Your election is critical. This is a bellwether election year because it's Florida for the Senate. I'm talking about specifically. It's Georgia. It's North and South Carolina. It's New Hampshire. It's Pennsylvania. It's Missouri, Ohio. It is.
You see that there, Sauce? You see what they're trying to get at, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's bad, and you think it gets even worse. The liberal show, the nut jobs from The View, I've mentioned maybe about 20, 30 minutes ago, on the show tonight with when Donald Trump, see, they're all attacking each other. See, that's what I'm getting at, Sauce. They're all attacking each other, and they're trying to get that Graham supremacy of networking. They see where networking is going, Sauce. They see it. They see the difference, what we were just talking about, between podcasting, modern podcasting, versus bias, corrupted mainstream media. I'm not bashing, folks. I'm not bashing Hannity, okay? Hannity happens to be, somewhat of a conservative still in his own mindset. Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, They're great people, Sauce, but they're all trying to regain the supremacy of the networks because they see where the networking is going. They see what's going on with CNN.
Absolutely. And, you know, the whole thing is that, okay, so I think the only way that Fox News and, you know, can actually save themselves as of right now, or I think even to retain more, is if they just focus on per commentary thing for Sean Hannity, they focus on for the first 5 minutes, you know. And I think one thing that actually kind of does bother me is that the lack of participation, the lack of questioning real true Americans and see what their real thoughts are. You know, the people that you see on Sean Hannity, which I don't watch anymore, because you see Lindsey Graham, who's a fraud. Okay, you see Ted Cruz, who doesn't have a backbone, and then you also see all these so-called ex-president or former President Trump staffers who backstabbed him. Bill Barr, and why on earth would you interview those kind of people for issues that are pertaining to like gas and to the economy? Why don't you talk to your average day American? You know, that's how you get people onto the show, not onto the show, but that's how you get people to retain, and that's how you get viewers even to skyrocket. You know, because, you know, going to the View and watching the View, I don't watch a View because it's just, you know, it's
garbage. It is
garbage.
Literally garbage. I mean, I don't understand how they still have viewership. I don't even know how they're getting viewership.
I think they're paying them.
They probably are paying them. But how is this allowed? Stuff like this is allowed. And this is my next point here. Stuff like this garbage here, Sauce, that is allowed to be viewed on national television. But stuff like what you and I are talking about here on a podcasting network, okay? Any network for that matter, large or small, okay? We're talking about something right now. It's automatically fact-checked. It's automatically censored. It's automatically this and that, shadow ban. Shit, they'll go to the end of the earth to destroy you as a content creator, a podcast host, or even a vlogger for that matter. They'll try to delete you from existence. But stuff like this, and folks, I'm going to get a little unfiltered here. So if this is not for you, I'd highly advise you leave the room. But shit like The View is allowed to be aired on national television and everything else. They talk in such disgusting behavior. I know from time to time, Sauce, I'll get a little unfiltered and a little under raw, right? I mean, that's my show is all about it. But I'm expressing it in another way.
But the difference between you and The View is that you don't denigrate you don't denigrate and commend Adolf Hitler for his wonderful job, aka Whoopi Goldberg did. And the only thing she did was get a 2-week suspension, and even then she complained and she threatened to leave the show. And so then they cut her 2-week suspension into like a week suspension. You know,
I see that, but it was a joke, though. I mean, it was nothing but a damn joke. You know, it was nothing but for publicity, if you ask me.
But if you and I did that, or if anyone else did that, besides, for instance, if Sean Hannity did that, or even if what's it called, if Mike Lindell did that and stuff, he would be.
I was going to say, why don't you go? Yeah, move the scale down a little bit, Sauce. If people like Dan Bongino or Michael Savage or Joe Rogan did that, oh my God, they would be canned.
They'd be going right after them.
They would be fired. Their contract would be terminated immediately.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And it shows you that double hypocrisy, and it shows you that double standard that people are starting to see through. But the fact is that I don't know. Well, it was interesting because I wanted to see and I kept my eye on the school board election, you know, and how that was, you know, we're kind of switching over to like, you know, what happened in Virginia and how so many people are fed up, like we're fed up with it, and they made a major shift. Well, the whole question, the bigger question in Wisconsin is that, first of all, the election was not very successful in Wisconsin whatsoever. Matter of fact, Mequon is outside of Milwaukee, and they've always been conservative. And for the first time, they officially have all liberal school board members. You know, they finally voted out the last one. You look at my hometown, okay? For the first time ever, if a conservative school board member was running, they would vote that he would win by a landslide. Well, look at what happened now. He was projected to win. Well, he wasn't projected to win. He actually came by an upset. And the only reason why he came by an upset is because of these rural areas that are awake and are, know what's going on. And then you have my hometown and stuff. I don't know what more, like he lost by a landslide, and for the first time ever, our city council, we officially voted out the last Republican person. So it's all liberally.
Well, please tell me, even though he lost, and I'm sorry that he lost that great battle of that election, but please tell me, you just mentioned the school board, please tell me he's not in favor of this woke agenda to the school, with this transphobia, which is disgusting. I did a podcast episode just on that about 3-4 days ago. Please tell me he's not in favor of that.
Well, you're going to like this. So guess what? Guess what Westfield decided to implement? So Westfield, our school district, decided to implement unisex bathrooms. And so now, for instance,
oh my God.
Yeah. And so we have this one guy, a high school kid, and he's now he thinks he's a woman, but he clearly has all of his male parts. And so now he's allowed to go in the locker room, in the women's locker room, and the women's bathroom. Now, to me, I think that is a major, major problem. Yeah. And the whole thing is, now, it's funny because I actually wrote a thesis paper on this. I'm in school, and so because I'm in school, we learn a lot. And I love to study this kind of these topics because it's been a heated topic. Did you know that there is a very, very small actual percentage of LGBTQ community out there? And the only reason why they're so-called they're like all around the corner and stuff, and the reason why they're being so propped up to only about the 0.3% of Americans is because they went to the right people. They went to CNN, they went to the school boards, and actually they went to the Democratic Party headquarters in DC. That very minor few people went to it and made a big deal about it. And so now they're making it, like, for instance, they're making he actually is working on a bill, like, for instance, to give more funding to the LGBTQ minority people. Look what happened to the BLM. Look what happened to all these other corporate factories that are donating to the BLM and now to the minority people.
Right. You mentioned.
Do you really think all that? No, I kind of joked around this. I'm like, maybe I should put equality or LGBT, the alphabet people. Maybe I think I should put the alphabet people on GoFundMe and put $50,000 and I should just only give $1 to the Human Rights Campaign. But
here's the thing, Sash. You mentioned that there's a very small majority of LGBTQ plus in that area where you go to school at. Is that mainly a conservative or a blue territory of that area? Does it lean more blue or does it lean more red?
It leans more towards Russia 2.0. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the only reason why it leans is because for the first time ever, about the beginning of March, I was actually escorted out of the city hall meeting, in handcuffs.
Well, hold on. Before you get into that story, the reason why I say that is because, or I think you understand why I'm saying this, folks, is because you have a certain area that will lean towards that type of agenda, such as LGBTQ plus. If it's more leaning towards a blue, mainly Democrat, you will have that lean to that. We see that here in Metro Atlanta with the LGBTQ plus. That has a huge impact with Georgia Tech and the other colleges in the Atlanta area. So because it's more of a blue Democratic area. Atlanta's always been Democratic. But in other areas such as Athens, which is another huge area in Georgia, the University of Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs, right? That is more of a conservative Republican area, and the LGBTQ plus is not as high as it is in Atlanta. So that's the only reason why I was asking that question, because
another thing is that There is, okay, so you know how there's so many, like there's like this massive push for like, when I thought like the LGBTQ, I thought like there were all these pride parades and stuff, and that realistically, I cannot find a transgender person. It's like finding a pin, or it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Needle in a haystack, yeah.
yeah. And I go to Madison a lot, and they cry out all these LGBTQ and stuff. But to me, you can't find a gay person walking at downtown Madison. You can't find that during the broad daylight, even on campus. And I try to look. But you
know when you will find a gay or a transgender or whatever, you'll find one real quick when cameras start rolling.
Oh yeah,
CNN comes in town, MSNBC. They'll be coming out of the haywork. They'll be coming out of the sewers all of a sudden.
Or you pull up the TikTok.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Oh my God.
Yeah, the whole fakeness will be coming out because they'll be getting their little 5-10 minutes of fame. They'll be going on TikTok. They'll be YouTubing later. Oh my God, there'll be another talking point. That's when the real garbage comes out. But did you see? This kind of ties into what we're talking about. I had the so-called woke, right? I did an episode. This will actually be a kind of 2 segments here. What I'm talking about. I did an episode yesterday about the Church of Woke. Okay, and this ties into what we're talking about, right? Transgender, right? This and that.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Sash, you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, I don't know what happened, but no. Oh, are you talking about the Church of Woke and also the United LGBTQ Church?
Oh yeah. It's going on like crazy.
On my 5-page thesis, I spent literally 3 pages talking about how the Church of the LGBTQ and the Church of LGBTQ, or the LGBTQ Church, and that's based out of California now, spreading as like a new thing. I spent about 3 pages, and it's size 10 font, about 1,000 words per se, if you want to be correct, talking heavily against it and stating that is unbiblical beyond measure, and how
it's an actual movement.
It is.
I looked at it, Sauce, and I thought it was a complete joke. I looked at it. There's a video that this gentleman up in he's from Toronto, Canada, but he does a lot of his work in the tri-state area of New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania. He actually has a show that people actually buy into this crap. Check this out, Sauce. I mean, folks, you're going to want to – I plugged this into my podcast episode just yesterday on this specific topic that I touched on. I'll plug it in again if you missed it. Check this out.
It is the dawning of an age where we need to repent your bigotry, repent your phobias, cast down ableism, and cast down sexism. No, the Church of Woke is just like any other church, except our God is intersectionality and our devil is intolerance. Thou shalt not listen to the fiery bigotry contained within podcasting. Now, just like some of the other churches, we believe that blasphemous ideas that cause dissent to our cause should be removed. Remove problematic language from your vocabulary. We're actually doing a book burning later. I mean, we have Harry Potter, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, which is basically our Salvador Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. Just sacrilege. A goal of mine would be to get a little closer to Islam's influence. I mean, when they tell you not to make a cartoon, people listen. Dismantle the patriarchy. Never let opposing viewpoints stifle your faith. While religious mothers of the past have had their sights set on deplatforming Howard Stern, we're more focused on the new generation's Howard Stern. Hello! We've sort of designed it to be a bit of an echo chamber. I mean, if our viewpoint can take us to the promised land, should we not try anything in our power to get there? This is one of our many Bibles. Cast down the vile comedy of Andrew Dice Clay. And though other religions in the past have gained control of the printing press to stop the spread of misinformation, we've seized control of the social media platform. It is not enough to not be ableist. You know, this is the booth where you confess anything like sexist thoughts, phobias. It's not anonymous, and we've actually removed about 20,000 members after learning of their impurities. But while some other religions allow you to repent and ask for forgiveness, we prefer you to repent in the form of a formal apology, and then we cast you out anyway. It is time to recognize your internal bigotry, your internal Islamophobia. You know, we're working on some of our own hymns, like NYPD suck our dick. You want to create like an unreachable puritanical standard, you know, keep them on their toes. Truth be told, I'm actually against organized religion, which is why I make a point of our ideas being very unorganized. You know, some churches say everyone's a sinner. I mean, we think everyone's a bigot. Thou shalt not appropriate. Thou shalt not use another's identity in vain. Now, some people try to say the Church of Woke isn't a real religion, but Durkheim defined religion as a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things, that is to say, things set apart and forbidden. And we're doing our best to fulfill that requirement. And thou shalt put their pronouns in their bio. Right now, we're working on having our beliefs intertwined with the state. Get our teachings into schools, workplaces, the rule of law, sort of the unification of the state and woke. It is time for you to shut your mouths and listen. But it is also not my job to educate you. You want to confuse them a little bit so they just stop thinking and defer to you on everything? One day I'd love to have one of those super churches where we get to smash all the girls. Those guys are living. I'm thinking about doing like a reading of the ADL's new ads so they know who to stay away from. The Christian churches reigned supreme in America for far too long. Now it's our turn. And the woke crusades will take place on the internet. And cast down homophobia. When I do it live, the guy on stage faints, everyone cheers. It's like a whole thing. Thou shalt not question the government's COVID protocols. Trump Pence out now. Obviously, we'll have to modify that one a little bit.
Sauce, I must say, it is very comical at first, but this stuff is actually happening in America today. People are buying into this crap.
Absolutely. And and the whole thing is that when you look at the big scheme of pictures, or the big scheme of picture, you're looking at how Satan is really attacking the church. And the way you attack the church is you attack what the gender looks like, and you attack what love is supposed to be like. You know, love isn't supposed to be, and you attack the nuclear family and what it stands for. And so that's, and I've been heavily on topic of this, and the sad part is that we have multiple churches, splitting up because of this issue, because of the forcing of LGBTQ stuff. Now, I want to get this across before we continue on. I'm not against. Okay, so I just want to tell you. Okay, so I'm not attacking the LGBTQ community or the alphabet people. I'm not. If you love,
I'm not doing it at all either.
No. And my stance on this is that when a person asks me what I think about it, we're supposed to love the individual. We're supposed to love the person, but we're supposed to dislike the sin. Hate the sin, love the person. And so, and another factor is that don't force, if you want to be gay, or if you want to dress up like a woman or dress up like a man or something like that, or vice versa, do it on your own free time. Do it behind when you're at home in front of your family. But don't force your ideology upon others, and that we have to force to cater to your supposedly needs. That's the thing that bothers me beyond. It just irks me.
It bothers me very much so, Sas. I was about to ask you your viewpoints on this, because this kind of goes into, you mentioned a good point. If you want to dress up as a woman, you want to, think you're a woman, but you're really a man, vice versa. If you think you're a man when you're really a woman, hey, whatever floats your boat. If you want to do that, by all means, go ahead. But my viewpoint and my opinion on this, okay, is that they're pushing this way too far, Sauce. It's going into the schools. They're teaching kids this, okay? They're confusing the youth, the next youth of America.
The next generation.
Yes. Yeah.
And so now we have...
What is your viewpoints on that, Sauce?
So, actually, I love this. We could do another segment for this, because I actually have more of a... So I just want to tell you, for your viewers, I'm a hospice minister, and I'm a very heavily biblical person. So, and I do major podcasts. So I'm going to, if we want to kind of break...
save this for another segment. Yeah.
Yes, because I would love to get into it. And so I know that I'd love to get into this as another topic, but I'm kind of not running out of time, but time is crunching down.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna close it out soon.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine. I wanted to get into this last topic here. We mentioned the View and everything, and we kind of went off topic. I'd love to talk more of that religion with you. That'd be a great topic to get into. But I want to plug in this quick little video here. I want to get your insights on it because it has a lot to do with what I was talking with Pedro Orta the other day, which happened to be a former intelligence officer that served in the CIA.
And that was a very great interview, by the way. Very well done.
Very much. Yes, he was very, very informed with a lot of knowledge, information, and a lot of stuff I wanted to ask him, but there was a lot that he could not say on the show, obviously, dude, with classified information, and I understand that. But there's a point here that the people on The View made this towards Donald Trump, and it has a lot to do with what Pedro was saying. Check this out.
So Trump was on the road again this weekend to tell a rally crowd in North Carolina how he's the last honest man in D.C. Yeah, and I'm a natural redhead. Watch.
I've been investigated by the Democrats more than Billy the Kid, Jesse James, and Al Capone combined. And in all cases, I've been innocent. I've got to be the cleanest sheriff. I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created. Perhaps.
Oh, leave God out of this, Donald. And back in the real world, evidence is piling up that he and his lackeys did, in fact, try to steal the election. Congresswoman Liz Cheney says the January 6th committee has evidence that crimes were committed. And CNN has texts of Donald Jr. sharing strategies with Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to keep his dad in office before election results were in, claiming, quote, "We have multiple paths we control, and we control them all."
Oh, shut up. Shut up. Oh, we have evidence. We have evidence. That evidence could be fabricated over the freaking weekend. That false evidence. See what they're doing, Sas? They're pushing this January 6th for some strange reason. They know that they failed on the Russia collusion scandal. They knew they failed on the Mueller reports. They're still trying to push this January 6th crap.
Absolutely. And you see that's a huge problem. And that tells you that the only way what about this idea? What happens if they keep focusing on that January 6th in order to keep their viewership? Because once they talk about the real problems of the world, for instance, the gas prices or the inflation, how the inflation is at an all-time 40-year high and it's increasing. We're about to have another FED rate hike next week. Yeah. And so the only way that they can get their viewership and get people aware of it is if they say, oh, if you tune in for tomorrow, we're going to show raw footage and we have evidence. Well, if you have the evidence, if you really have evidence, why don't you bring it to the DOJ? Why do you have it yourself? Aren't you committing a crime there of withholding evidence?
That is a valuable point, and I'm about to plug this in because we know you have to get going here. I really want you to see this video before we depart here off the show. With Pedro, literally saying the very same thing as you said. Check this out.
You know what I mean? Everything is woke. Everything is canceled. 1 minute, you're allowed to say something on YouTube or social media. The next minute they're fact checking, they're bringing out the people, in Silicon Valley and the basements. I would like to, call it, with fact checking. So it's getting a little, ridiculous if you ask me. And it needs to stop, Pedro. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
We're dealing with mindsets, ways of thinking, ways of behaviors. And these behaviors have been building through time. I mean, we can go back and look at it as the nation began to transform itself, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And then all of a sudden, it really started going downhill, predominantly in the last 10 years, more so in the last probably 5. wicked people will always.
Yeah. The wicked people, as he said, and I'm going to close this right here saying this with him, the wicked people will always be wicked, Sas.
Absolutely. And
great quote by Pedro Israel Orta, a true patriot of this country. He sees the corruption firsthand, what he calls it, the deep state of muck, which was a very, very good podcast episode, I must say. Probably the most in-depth podcast episode I've ever done on this show. We will be inviting Pedro back on the show, and we would love to have you on the show with him.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know me. I could be your regular. I can join the team.
Yeah. I mean, we love having you on your show, and like I said, I did mention some talking points in that podcast. If you had checked out the entirety, whether it was the video or the audio simulated on Spotify, Google, or Apple, as well as Amazon, Pedro said the same thing. I served in the U.S. government for 19 years. I seen the corruption. I seen the deep state of muck being ran through different types of administrations. Okay.
And the whole thing is that it's not only within the government, it's also within your military, and this is what, and I just want to tell you, because I encountered this myself. And so we could do that for another topic of how really the true look at the military and stating how I really got sick and how I got paralyzed from the neck down, because it's that corruption that led to it that caused me to get
and
really
I would
sick.
love for you to share that story, because I think that would be the only time you would be able to share that story, Sas, because if you went on a regular talk show, CNN, they wouldn't allow it.
No.
They wouldn't allow it because they don't want the truth exposed. And I'm
No.
sure there is a lot of truth behind this that, they put you through. And that's very, very sad as a military personnel.
And it's not only the military, it's not only the military, but it's like how it was treated, just because where I came from, and how just because you have a Russian name, and that's just, okay, here's going to be a little caveat, or here's going to be a little sneak peek to the next episode if we want to do it. So pretty much what happened was, long story short, I get to Japan, and then I get slapped with a Russian agent, whole fiasco, and stating that I meddled in the 2016 election, and it took about 3.2 million of your tax dollars to vote or to do a full investigation on my whole thing, and stating what I did on November 6th and what I did on November 6th and 2016. And long story short, it ended up where my supervisor ended up throwing coins and dehumanizing me and causing me to get paralyzed from the neck down. And long story short, the military didn't tell my parents what was really going on.
That's terrible.
That's a little sneak peek for your viewers. So if they want to stay tuned, I'm going to be very excited to talk about it. I don't mind that being a little bit of a lengthy one, because that is a true testimony to really expose.
We will have to have that. Yes, we will have to have that. And we're going to have to share that, another episode. I'd like to have that episode with you. And I would also like to have that religious episode with you as well. We just basically talked about, because these are really, really good key talking points. And I think the listeners, they deserve this, Sas. They deserve to hear this, because you're not going to hear this anywhere else. CNN's not going to talk about it. You know why they're not going to talk about it. I mean, it's plain and simple, Sas. They're ran by the liberal machine,
Absolutely. And not only that, but they're also ran by China.
Well, they have a lot to do with, George
Soros. Who is not? Okay, George Soros is not even an American. He was born in Austria-Hungary. He should have been. You want to talk about bigot and racist? That is the key definition, and that's a key proponent who is a bigot and a racist. Because
you could take a look at Michael Savage, labeled him very well, Dr. Savage, on the Savage Nation podcast. Soros is trouble. I would stay away from him.
Absolutely. So as I conclude, if your followers want to follow me on Spotify, I have my own Spotify. I finally had to break away. Facebook did a good due diligence of me not posting anything besides messaging. But if your viewers want to follow me, they can follow me at Remember God Loves You, and I'll meet you at the Finish Line podcast, or just put SOSLAN Saslan Timonson, and then it'll show up as Remember God Loves You, and I'll meet you at the finish line. That podcast is if you want to grow closer to God, and if you want to kind of mix it in with personal experiences to a little bit what's going on in this day and age and how to keep positive through it, you're welcome to give a listen to it for your viewers.
Sauce, I love the SOS. The reason why I love it is because I like the abbreviation SOS. Save
SOS.
our ship. Save our ship.
And the funny part is, I'm on everybody's device. SOS.
Yeah.
And I have an emoji after me.
Yeah, save our ship. That's what I.
Or save our nation.
Yeah. Or save our nation. SON. Yeah,
that's my last 3 letters of my
Sauce,
last name.
I wish we had more time, sir. It's always a great honor and a privilege to talk to you. You're such a man full of knowledge and inspiration, and I truly hope that you don't give up, not only on yourself but on our country, sir.
You know me. I came way too far to only give up now.
Yes.
The moment I give up, actually, I will give up once I'm 6 feet in the ground, and then I'll get the crown of glory in heaven. So yeah. We have a lot. You and I have a lot of fighting to do, and so do your viewers. But we have to educate your viewers in order to fight. That's the important key.
The more we spread the conservative movement, the MAGA movement, the everything that's great about this country movement, that's when we get our country back from the tyrants in government.
And communists.
Yes. Amen to that. Sauce, it's been an honor. Thank you for joining us today. And remember, guys, you can follow Sauce with everything that he had just mentioned on the show. And we will put this in the show notes on our audio simulated podcast platforms. You can view it on Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify, Google, and Apple, or anywhere you hear a podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today, guys, and we will see you next time.
You just heard an episode of the Patriot Angle podcast. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon Music, and Audible. Also streaming live on Twitch. Remember to follow and like us, guys, for unfiltered, uncensored, raw content. Also, please head over to www.patriotanglepodcast.com for all your exclusive Patriot Angle podcast content and material, as well as the merchandise website www.patriotunfiltered.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.